There is a photograph in the Verath Provincial Survey Archive, catalogued under plate number versus -1871, that shows 7 people standing in front of a stone granary in what the caption identifies as the Eastern Agricultural District of Verath, taken during the land survey of compact year 44. The photograph is unremarkable in most respects, a standard documentation image of the type produced by the 1000 during that survey period. What is not unremarkable is the doorway. The granary's entrance arch stands clearly in the background. The 7 people stand before it, and even accounting for the angle of the photograph, for the distance from the lens, for every reasonable correction a researcher might apply. The top of the arch clears the tallest figure in the frame by less than the width of a hand. The doorway, according to the granary's construction records filed with the Verath Land Registry, was built to a standard agricultural specification. The specification is documented. The height is recorded. I measured the figure in the photograph against it. I have been measuring figures against doorways for 3 years. The Verath Provincial Survey was conducted between compact year 42 and compact year 47, commissioned by the newly formed Bureau of Land and Settlement to produce a comprehensive cartographic and demographic record of the province's rural territories. Survey teams were dispatched to every district. Each team included a cartographer, an administrative recorder, and from compact year 44 onward, a photographic technician. The resulting archive contains 4,200 survey photographs, 800 of which include human subjects, residents, photographed beside landmarks, structures, and boundary markers as part of the documentation process. I began reviewing the archive because I was researching construction standards in the eastern districts, trying to understand why so many agricultural structures from the pre-compact era were built to specifications that exceeded what the recorded population would have required. The doorways were wider than standard, the ceiling beams were set higher, the grain storage platforms were elevated beyond practical necessity for the people supposedly using them. These discrepancies appear in construction records going back to compact year 1 and earlier in buildings that predate the survey by 2 and 3 generations. The photographs were supposed to help me understand scale. They did not answer the question I came with. They opened a different one. But here is where the detail first becomes difficult to explain away. Of the 800 survey photographs containing human subjects, I identified 61 in which the relationship between the human figure and a documented architectural element allowed for a reliable height estimate. I worked from the construction records cross-referenced with the survey's own administrative logs, which noted structural dimensions as part of the land assessment process. In 47 of those 61 photographs, the height estimates fell within the range the Bureau's own demographic records described as typical for the adult rural population of the eastern districts. In 14 photographs, they did not. 14 photographs across 6 separate survey districts, spanning compact years 44 through 46. Human figures whose estimated heights, measured against documented architectural elements, exceed the recorded demographic average by a margin that architectural error alone cannot plausibly account for. I want to be careful about what I am and am not saying. Photographs introduce distortion. Lenses in this period were not precision instruments. Construction records can contain transcription errors. A figure standing closer to the lens appears larger. I applied every correction I could reasonably apply. In 11 of the 14 photographs, the corrections brought the estimates within a range that might be described as unusual but not impossible. In 3, they did not. 3 photographs in which a figure's estimated height after every reasonable correction remains difficult to reconcile with the documented record of the population those figures belong to. Plate versus -1871 is one of them, and this is where the pattern begins to form. E searched for follow-up records on the individuals photographed in those 14 plates. The survey's administrative logs recorded the names of human subjects when they were present at the time of documentation and when they were willing to provide them. Not all subjects cooperated. The logs note several instances of residents declining to be named, but in 9 of the 14 photographs, at least one figure is identified by name in the accompanying survey log. I took those 9 names and searched for them in subsequent civil records, the household registries maintained by the Bureau of Land and Settlement, the parish records held in each district's administrative archive, the inheritance and property transfer documents filed when residents died or relocated. These records were not perfectly maintained. Rural documentation in the compact era was inconsistent. I expected gaps. What I found was not gaps in the expected places. 6 of the 9 named individuals appear in the survey log, and then nowhere else. No subsequent household registry entry, no property transfer. No death record, no parish notation. They are documented once. At the moment, a survey photographer recorded them standing in front of a granary or beside a field boundary or at the entrance of a community hall. And then they are absent from every subsequent record I was able to locate. Reasonable? Perhaps. Rural residents moved. Records were lost. A person who did not own land would leave few administrative traces. Taken individually, each absence is explainable. But here is the detail that does not settle. The Bureau of Land and Settlement conducted a follow-up census in compact year 52, 5 years after the survey's completion. The census was designed specifically to verify the survey's demographic data and to update household compositions for tax and inheritance purposes. Every district covered by the original survey was revisited. Census takers were instructed to account for residents who had appeared in the survey records and to note any who could no longer be located, with an explanation where possible. Relocation, death, family departure. I reviewed the compact year 52 census records for the 6 districts containing my 14 photographs. For 5 of the 6 named individuals who vanished from the record after the survey, the census contains no notation at all. They are neither found nor noted as missing. They simply do not appear in the follow-up census, as if the census takers did not know to look for them. The 6th named individual appears in the census. He is listed as deceased. The cause of death is recorded as natural causes. The date of death is listed as compact year 45, 1 year after he was photographed in plate versus -1188. Standing beside a boundary stone, his estimated height after correction, still exceeding the documented regional average by a margin I cannot resolve. His death record exists. His burial record does not. I searched the parish records for his district. No interment is recorded for him in compact year 45, or in any subsequent year. The death record was filed. The burial was not. No, here is where the testimony complicates the picture further. The Verath Antiquarian Society maintained an oral collection in its later decades, recording the recollections of elderly residents whose families had lived in the eastern districts since the pre-compact era. The collection was assembled over roughly 20 years and transcribed into a series of bound volumes held in the Society's archive in the provincial capital. The volumes are organized by district and by family name. They are not widely cited in academic literature, but they are publicly accessible. I spent several weeks reading through the volumes for the 6 districts that appear in my 14 photographs. Most of the recollections are what one would expect. Memories of seasonal work, local celebrations, property disputes, floods and harvests. Ordinary life recorded in the careful, slightly formal language that comes from speaking to an archivist rather than to a family member. But in the 3rd volume, covering the Eastern Border District, I found an account given by a woman identified only as a resident in her late years whose family had farmed the district for 4 generations. She was not speaking about anything unusual. She was describing the landscape of her childhood and in the middle of a passage about a particular hill near the family property. She said something that I have not been able to read past without pausing. She said, "When I was small, there were still the tall ones. My grandmother called them the old families. They kept to themselves mostly. After a while they were just gone. I asked my grandmother where they went, and she said she didn't know. She said one season they were there, and the next they weren't. She didn't say it like it was a mystery. She said it like it was weather. She didn't say it like it was a mystery. She said it like it was weather. I searched the volume for additional references to the old families, or the tall ones. I found 2 more. One was a single sentence in an account from the northern sub-district. My father used to say the big ones left before the census. The other was a marginal annotation in a different hand on the same page, added by an unidentified reader at some point, after the volume was bound. Same in the western reaches. Gone by Sci 50. Gone by compact year 53 years after the survey concluded. 3 years after 14 photographs were taken that I cannot fully explain against the documented record. And here is perhaps what I return to most. The Bureau of Land and Settlement published an official demographic summary following the compact year 52 census. The summary described the Eastern District's population as stable, with moderate attrition in rural households consistent with migration toward the provincial capital. It noted that certain pre-compact family lines had concluded in the survey period due to the absence of surviving descendants, which it attributed to the effects of the long illness that had moved through the eastern districts in the compact year 30s. I looked for documentation of that illness. It appears in 2 Bureau reports from compact year 33 and 34, describing elevated mortality in 3 eastern districts over an 18-month period. The reports are consistent and administrative. They do not describe anything unusual about the affected population. What the demographic summary does not mention is that the family lines it describes as concluded, the ones attributed to the long illness of 2 decades prior, include surnames that appear in my survey photographs. 3 of the 6 individuals I could not locate in subsequent records carry surnames listed in the demographic summary as lines that concluded without surviving descendants. Families that ended, no children, no inheritance records, no graves I can find. The Bureau's explanation is the long illness of compact year 33. The photographs are from compact year 44. 11 years after the illness, the people in those photographs were alive. Then they were not in the record. The Verath Provincial Survey Archive holds 4,200 plates. Plate versus -1,871 is filed in the Eastern District section, 4th shelf, 3rd box from the left. The granary in the background was demolished in compact year 61. The construction records that allowed me to estimate the figure's height are in the Land Registry Annex, cross-referenced under parcel number E-449. The 7 people in that photograph have no subsequent record. The archive is open 4 days a week. Plate versus -1,871 is still there, waiting, the way a photograph waits, fixed at the moment it was taken, unable to say what came after.